Vulnerable groups such as women, youth, and ethnic minorities are particularly targeted by disinformation, often through narratives that exploit marginalization and identity politics. This week on InfoCheck, we speak with a renowned journalist who, among other key roles, is a former news coordinator of the UN radio in Mali to break down the data and the real-world impact. Madame Mame Diarra Diop, it is a pleasure to have you on InfoCheck.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Now, PenPlusBytes findings show that vulnerable groups are now more targeted than ever by disinformation. In your experience, which groups are the most targeted? How do you explain this targeting?
Thank you, Francis. To talk about disinformation, and particularly in Mali, where I was working all these years, I think that youths are a very vulnerable community to target when we speak about disinformation. In Mali, we have they represent with women more than 50% of the population, and we have a very low level of educations, poor access to literacy, to media literacy. So this group is very much keen to be manipulated by information, disinformation, misinformation. And when we also see that today they have access to digital world, smartphones, information, so it's easy to see all kind of message without any preparation on how to take an information. As a journalist, I've always learned that everything that I see you have to doubt. This is not a natural reaction of everyone, doubting on things. And most of the time, young people, I don't know how to say that, they receive information and they just ingest it and take it the way it is given to them.
Do you think education plays a part here?
I think education is a big part of it. When you see this population that is not educated in Mali, we have, I think, 70% of people not being educated. It's clearly one of the reasons, not all the reason, but one of the reasons why they are, subject to disinformation, I think.
So practically speaking, how do you think disinformation actors use those vulnerable groups, exploit ethnicity, exploit women groups to spread disinformation? What have you seen in the region?
Oh, what we've seen in the region is that it's a very complex region. Let's say that we talk about the Sahel. We talk about countries that are facing a lot of challenge, development challenge, economic challenge, education challenge. We spoke about it, and we are also witnessing socio-political evolution and crisis. So we face a very critical situation right now in the Sahel, where you have many, also security issues, terrorist group operating, young people facing, economic challenge, migrations, a lot, we are facing a lot. And so these big mass of people are clearly a target for some groups or some politics leaders to manipulate and try to have controls over things. And it's when we see all these military regime we've been witnessing since 2020, what you see is that youth have been the primary, community who supported these military regimes and rejected the idea of democracy. When it started in Mali and then Niger and then Burkina Faso, the young people went in the streets to say, okay, we want to support the military now. We don't want democracy anymore. And it's very impressive to see that because it's really a sensitive part of the society. And added to that, we also have women groups, So.
But if you were to, go deeper, what do you think is the root of this? Why there's discontent, obviously.
Yeah.
But why do you think these vulnerable groups are backing, let's say, not so democratic governments?
Because they've been disappointed. They've been disappointed all these years by policies and politics. They've been they haven't seen their needs fulfilled, their hopes fulfilled. In Mali, for example, we've been through the democratic revolution in 1991, and then people believed the country would change, a lot of things would transform, and we found ourselves with a big mass of population that is very poor. We also have poverty in that, and corruption and bad governance mixing to all that. And the security issue also came recently this year. We have the security aspects. And then people finally believe that these politics or elections or all these things are not securing or guaranteeing them, a decent life. They're not having jobs, education as well. We spoke about it. So we just went through this military regime, and people say, okay, let's try the militaries again and see what happens.
Now, you have a lot of experience in Mali, and according to the PenPlusBytes Disinformation Index, Mali and Burkina Faso were quite identical in the results that came out, and Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana were also very identical, right? Which it tells a lot of stories, right? But do you think it is possible that we may start seeing a pattern, for example, what the vulnerable groups doing in Mali and Burkina Faso? Do you see it replicating itself across West Africa, say Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, say Nigeria, Togo?
Not exactly the same pattern in all these countries. I think it could be similar in Burkina Faso and Mali, but not so much in Ivory Coast or Ghana. In Mali, vulnerable groups are more targeted inside the country. If we speak, for example, of the Fulanis people, they've been targeted a lot. They've been accused of being terrorists because they have a certain types, and there have been a lot of communities violence in the center of the countries between herders and farmers. So people believe that they were terrorists, which is incredible because you have so many communities in this country. It's such a diverse and vast countries. So we've seen these people being taken for what they're not, just because they live in some part of the country. They're trying to find a living in some areas where you have a lot of security issues. So this has been also, helped by, I would say, a certain narratives from the militaries targeting these people. So it's a very complex situation. I think they're very, very, very vulnerable.
So let's put you on the spot. Yeah. Let's put you in a position of authority. You are no longer a journalist. You are no longer a producer.
Yeah.
You are no longer in the media space. What solutions do you see?
The solutions are multiple. What we see today is it's more linked to a development issues, a security issue first, because you find these groups and these young people living in area where you don't have the presence of the state. You don't have, schools. You won't have a health structure. So these people are kind of, living by themselves. There's no rule in those areas. So the solution would be to give them some, I think, hope first, a sense of hope, a sense of, belonging to a country. And what we see in Mali is some areas people feel abandoned by the state. People don't feel that they're considered. So they will tend, especially young people, they will tend to go in extremist groups. When a group comes and gives you money to do, so much money to join a group, I think you will do it because you need to get out of poverty. So the solution would be to tackle these things, these young people and this vulnerable group trying to make a living, just trying to make a living and give them a sense of hope, I think.
But in your opinion, do you think this can go simultaneously with the conflict resolution process? We are not even yet in a conflict resolution stage. We are still in full-blown conflict in certain parts of Mali, right? Then we also have attacks in certain parts, not full-blown.
Yeah.
But do you think it can go hand in hand, or the security situation in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso needs to be resolved first before we start talking about this?
I think both It should be both at the same time. And we tried to do it. When I was working on the mission, there were a lot of initiative of, dialogues and negotiation, and to try to gather communities and try to solve this difference we saw on the field, and at the same time fighting the security thing, the security threats, the terrorist group, because these groups are moving so fast. They're changing so fast. Today we see that there's so much infiltrated in the society, and you will see local leaders today being terrorists, joining these big groups like Al-Qaeda or Jnim. It's no longer, the white guys, the Arabic guys. It's the Malian, the local.
The local recruitment.
Local recruitment, people you would never imagine are now in this group. And recently we saw a video of that guy in Mali who is one of the local leaders trying to impose that blockade over Bamako, who spoke. He speaks Bambara. He speaks in Bambara. So many people identify to him. And so it is changing so fast that you wonder what are the reasons that bring peoples to support this kind of people, because they have a language, they touch people with a certain way of speaking, they touch their daily challenge and fights, and these people don't trust anymore the militaries, because we've seen what is happening, a lot of killings. So you need to be very aware of that. And when you see the way they use the internet, the social media, the digital to vehiculate this message, when you see the comments that supports them, you wonder what sort of influence they have over society, including in the capital. It's no longer in the region because it was in the region. Those vulnerable communities were on the regions. And I can speak of the example of this city called, I think it's Farabana. It was in the center of Mali, who was, surrounded by groups. What do? They're surrounded by terrorist groups. They need to negotiate to continue to live. The state is not there. So what do? They find agreements to be able to live with these people. So they join them, including women, because their men have left. So it's only women in this village facing these people, and no security, no state. So what do? And now these people are infiltrating the capital, the people, and they look like you and me. It's familiar faces. So
it looks like over time, the role of women in the conflict in Mali has been evolving, because we're seeing women becoming a huge part of either fighting or even being recruited, fighting against insurgency, or even being recruited to be on the other side.
Yes.
What do you make of this?
Before they were seen as victims, before their role has changed, as you said. At the beginning, they were victims. They were suffering all this situation, and then their role has changed. They have become part of the solution, either to make peace or to go on the other sides, or to be also leaders, kind of, protecting themselves and their communities and their kids by trying to negotiate with these people. So obviously, yes, their role has changed. We've seen that in Mali when we signed the peace agreement in 2015. We've seen local civil society women joining, the big groups, the political groups, trying to be part of the peace process, raising the voice of other women to be considered. If you don't do that, you will be excluded from everything, and your voice won't be heard. So yes, their role are really changing right now. And you would be surprised if you go to these remote areas that you have very strong figures, leading a whole village or a whole community just to survive.
And how do you think this will affect the social structure post-conflict?
It has already affected the social structure. From the moment your man and your son joins terrorist groups and are no longer, it's no longer your son. It's a young, a young leader, a young terrorist leader. So it changes the structure of the society.
Now, in terms of the channels. You
Yeah.
touched on the digital channels and the insurgents, so to say, becoming very sophisticated digitally, communication-wise. What channels do you see that have really been used here? Is it the digital channels? Is it radio? Are they using influencers? We recently had the issue of the Malian influencer that was killed.
Yeah.
What's your take on all this?
I think they use so many channels, the social media. I see TikTok being very, very used by these people. Radio, of course, but radio is more, it's more delicate because it talks to everybody. But when you see, I think the social media is a channel that is used very much to spread message and at the same time disinformation, or to try to spread a sort of propaganda on what is happening, because young people, they all have access to internet, to the digital world. Radio was important before in those areas because a lot of people listened to it. But since the security issue came, even radio workers are very careful on what they say because they're fearing to be kidnapped or killed for saying some...
So there's some sort of self-censorship.
Yeah, self-censorship that is actually happening, because we've seen a lot of journalists being, who disappeared. We have many journalists disappear. Some of them were arrested. So they're being very cautious in how they report. And since, the digital world, the social media cannot be controlled, of course, it's a great channel for all type of disinformation issues to happen.
Now, finally, are there any initiatives that you see that have shown some kind of promise in restoring civic trust?
Yes, there are many initiatives. Some people are still trying to, to tell good stories, to give a great narrative, but it's small efforts when you see the scale, of disinformation, when you see all these people coming on social media and, speaking for themselves, influencers, video men in Mali. Anyone wants to say some things, and anyone is not an expert. Anyone is not a journalist, but you have so many voices speaking. You mentioned that young lady who died, killed by the terrorists. She was followed by a big community of, I think, 100,000 people. So when people are followed by so many people, they feel they have a voice and they feel they can say anything. That's a real problem, I think. That's a problem, because you spread some message, you spread some narratives that you don't even control, and you don't know what will be the impact, including for yourself, for your own security. I'm not saying that she wanted to die, but she did some kind of propaganda.
Yeah, it's a difficult context.
It's a difficult context. So you need to be very careful on what you're going to say as an influencer, as a video man. And this gives a bigger challenge for journalists to be journalists. Today, I think every journalist has become a fact checker. You need to fact check anything, including official release, press communique. You need to be doubting absolutely everything that you receive as a journalist first, and then as a citizen. And people don't make the difference.
So I think as you were talking, I just thought of something. Are we having an issue where the citizens first are becoming citizen journalists?
Absolutely.
While the trained journalists are becoming fact checkers.
Fact checkers, exactly.
Because it looks like the citizens are ahead of the journalists. Information.
They give the message before the journalists.
Without the best of context.
Of course, they don't take that time to verify, to check, which is what we journalists do. This is our primary role, is to, of course, to source the information before giving it. Because once the information is given, the impact is big. So citizens don't have that time. With social media and the digital world, everyone is in a hurry, is rushing to spread information. Even on platforms like WhatsApp or other group, you just keep sending and sharing information. I'm in a WhatsApp group with the family. It's just a simple example I gave. One of my uncle I was working at the UN mission, and I know how many blue helmets we have. And he just sent a piece of paper saying, okay, the mission has 20,000 peacekeepers. And I say, where did you get this information? You just spread it on the group and everyone's going to believe you. And I say, this is not true. Ask me. I work in the mission. Actually, there are 12,000 peacekeepers. So you see, you do it just in a click, in a second of time, and then it's done. The impact is very negative because you've touched so many people and you didn't take that time. So we need to come back to our fundamentals. I mean, if you want to be good journalists and now fact checkers, I would say we are journalist fact checkers now. We just can't avoid it anymore because the world has become very complex. And including, as you were saying at the beginning, for this vulnerable group, young people, women, and also these ethnic groups. So we need to be very careful in, doing some kind of sensitization, and I would say an education to media for children. That's all I say. When at school now, we should be having like media education module, I think, which is very important because all our kids have phones and smartphones. They go on all these social media platforms. We need to do that media education for children when they're very, very small because they need all these digital tools. They know how to manipulate. They know everything. And sometimes they come and ask you, oh, did you know this? Did you know this? And you have to tell them, this is true. This is not true. This is false. You see?
Madame Mame Diarra Diop, thank you for coming on InfoCheck.
Thank you, Francis, for having me.